Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you all. Here for the second time. Hope it works better right now. First of all, yeah, a presentation, and then this is an image that I have shown on the IMC in 2019. But I show it again because halos are a rarely observed phenomenon, and so you don't have too many images to show and to make a model from. So would you please play back the video? Now we see meteors in time, real time first, and then time lapse again. And this is a Perseid presented. It has a terminal flash. Now, okay, lucky strike because it was in the field of 2 cameras. And now you see a bluish afterglow. So the green afterglow, of course. We come back to that. So now this is from Zirko. Actually, in the AllSky7 archive, it's really the best one to show the blue halo. You see the blue afterglow here, and how long it lasts. Okay, then persistent trend that you know. And the last one comes from Jim Rowe from Bournemouth. That was not that obvious because we have several flares here, but you see the blue afterglow also here, there, even in the bright sky. Okay, so that is what I'm talking about today, and going here step by step. So this is a big advantage when you have an Hubble station observing and you can calculate trajectory. You have the real dimensions of what you see, but of course we see it here. This is this is a frame of the terminal flash, and we have to fight with lots of artifacts. And this is the strange thing about halos, that we cannot observe them without observing also all the artifacts of the camera, of the lens, and of the data compression and strange effects like that. By the way, a little bit strained off by this beamer. On my display it looked different, but that's also we have to fight with that. So, okay, this was the trajectory, and it was nearly rectangular to the optical axis of the camera. So the dimensions of the trajectory can be seen here in kilometers, and also the diameter or the radius of this green afterglow. We will talk about green afterglow later. Okay. I was pointed to a very early report of a halo phenomenon. I cannot read and understand Cyrillian, Russian Cyrillian, but due to the support of Ms. Boyachuk, who is an Ukrainian guest student in our university, she translated it for me. And Igor Stanislavovich Astapovich published a general book in 1958 and presented this photo from Orionid in 1952. And he addressed this, what you can see here in the black and white picture, as a so-called violet halo. Keep that in mind, that this color violet is. I want not to blame Mr. Astapovich, but this is speculation. Because there was no eyewitness of the color of this meteor, and this is a black and white image. The first meteor photo in the Soviet Union was taken in 1955, as he wrote in his book. So this was surely black and white. So the violet color is an estimation. The UV radiation is the physical origin of this small halo. You can see here. Instead, I show you this comparison, and it might be that what here they have photographed, by the way, with a shutter, rotating shutter here. What they have photographed was instead green, a green afterglow that can be seen with terminal flashes sometimes. I had some observations of that on my video recordings. So it's a nice point that violet is a complementary color to green. An outstanding example for a meteor halo, I think most of you know these images because so far, to my knowledge, the only recording of a shock front halo done by Steenbeck, Nielsen, and Jenniskens with a high-speed camera in 2001. It's a Leonid, and they used 1,000 frames per second, so each exposure is only 1 millisecond, so there's no motion blur, and they were lucky enough with their very, very narrow angle field, it's just a little bit more than 6 degrees square, to catch this fireball. And you see this X-shaped or bow structure halo from the side. And on the IMC 2018, when I presented the first video material of my, let's say, my 3414, if you want to go to the IMO Fireball archive, you will find this Perseid here. And we had a long discussion if this here is something similar to this here, but we did not come to a conclusion. Maybe, maybe not. Because here so many blooming artifacts of the camera and also data compression kind of overlay the structure. Also motion blur, because here you don't have motion. Okay, let's go back to Zirko's image. Thanks to the AllSky archive, I scanned the AllSky archive for all the fireballs and looked for halo phenomena, and I found some examples. There is an article in Advanced Java promised, and there I found about 5 to 7 examples, and we can see it here. So 6 frames before the terminal flash. The terminal flash is very broad compared to 3414. You have this. Oh, I'm sorry. So these streaks obviously are artifacts. Still, I do not know where they come from, but surely not. They are not from the Meteor. But the bluish afterglow around here, that is an overlap of overexposure, but also a real phenomenon. Because I could examine in Photoshop the temporal development of this bluish afterglow, and it turned out to be an afterglow and not a synchronous glow. So just as reflection in the Earth's atmosphere. There, of course, there is reflection in the Earth's atmosphere, but there's also a delay in a decay that is different from the terminal flash. That's very important. So 3 frames after, you see the strong blue color. That might be an artifact as well, because the color setting of the camera is not really fixed. But it is here, it reaches more intention after the overexposure has vanished, the overexposure from the terminal flash. And also here, and now 30, so you see the half a second after this can still strong bluish afterglow. It's about more than 1 second that you can determine it on the frame. I did it with Photoshop and Pipette. So 32 frames after the bluish afterglow has finished. And by the way, the sky now is darker than before. I'm not sure if this is a camera artifact, but we will check that with the next. So this is also a very nice example. It's also in the IMO database from this year. Ranjit Vivas from India recorded this, and please watch the video. I could not edit it because it's only available on YouTube. And this is the example by Jim Young. It's also in the AllSky archive. Okay, these are video observations of mine, and I also had in 2014, one of my first Meteor videos was an Aurigid, Geminid, Orionid, Leonid, all very fast meteors. They produce a recent halo phenomenon, not the slow ones. Maybe that they also produce it, but we cannot observe it right now. So now I made something very old-fashioned. I don't know, the older of us might know these devices. And I made a sketch. Now this will start very promising. Meteoroid moving. And then I made a little model. And you have 3 zones. This is not to scale. You have 3 zones of halo phenomena. So the inner circle, I call it zone A. There is what we call inner halo going back to the 2001 high-speed Leonid, a radius of less than 100 meters. So here obviously aerodynamic processes take place and chemical interaction, ablation, and things like that. So the next radius is, we will see that there is no radius, there's just gradients. It's like nailing a pudding onto the wall. It's not sharp. Is zone B median halo? That's interesting because there we have in this ratio of about maximum 5 kilometers, sometimes more, we have terminal flashes and green afterglow, and then we have this bluish afterglow zone, and this was very large. In my example, we had distinguished it more than 120 kilometers distance from the point of the meteor. So here we have the aerodynamic shock front halo. There we have terminal flashes and flares with possibly green afterglow. And there we have this pale blue afterglow after the terminal flash and containment. So that's my model, just morphological from some very few examples. But I think that the flare phenomena of meteors are not rare. They are only rarely observed. So a mantra, we need more data. We need more observations, we need more images. And this is quite a task because we have to deal with so many artifacts we cannot avoid. Overexposure, color change due to overexposure, so nonlinear color shift, lens artifacts like flares or streaks, data compression artifacts, if you use data compression, motion blur, very unpleasing. So it's an interesting task to interpret the images of the cameras we use. So, okay, conclusion, meteor flares are not a rare phenomenon. I guess maybe it is true that every meteor has some halos, but we cannot see them. Not yet. It might be like with extrasolar planets. So this was my attempt to catch Perseid with a special device. I will repeat this, but here it was unsuccessful because no bright Perseid flew through the field of images of these 4 cameras here with a narrow field of view. But instead, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Peter. Time for maybe one question.
So these recordings are from single station. There are no examples of multiple stations catching the same meteor. Maybe that's
yes. So the first meteor I showed you is in 3414 2018. There have been by coincidence double station observation. Otherwise, we could not have calculated the trajectory. Also, in the AllSky7 archives, there are lots of recordings of the same meteor. I just showed the most prominent examples. So you can go to the AllSky7 archives. There will be references in the proceedings. And I will indicate all the web sources. And then AllSky7 archive is very comfortable to serve. And there we are. So it's a real phenomenon.
Okay, maybe one more question.
I have one question. Did you measure velocity of propagation in halo?
You could do that, but the biggest question, the biggest obstacle to that is that we don't have sharp surfaces. So what do you measure? You only can see gradients, and the gradient of halo highly depends on the sensitivity of the system. So it's the same that the trajectory in this example for 3414. With my camera, the beginning height of the meteor was more than 150 kilometers, But from the second observation that took part in Bavarian forest, they used a photo camera, and there the beginning height was something like 120 kilometers. So it strongly depends on the sensitivity of the all over system, lens, camera, and post-production. So that's the main problem, and that makes it so difficult. And if you raise up the sensitivity, then you increase all the artifacts of overexposure. So you must be aware which halo phenomenon you want to observe. For the outer halo, you have very high sensitivity on the border what the cameras can do right now. But for the median halos, you need less sensitivity. And for the inner halo, that's the most complicated thing. You need a high temporal and spatial resolution. So that's really a task.